did discover the beauty of Ugandan Christian music. It's pretty awesome. So Dr. T.
Many dance parties.
Many dance parties that revolved around Dr. T. Apparently, a lot of pastors in Uganda have taken to making music videos recently, and Dr. T is by far the coolest one that we found, so we just wanted to share that with you real briefly. So anyway, Chris, we'll go ahead and transition over to the PowerPoint, whatever it is. So anyway, for those of you who don't know, we were in Uganda, and I was going to kind of just start off with an overview of what happened, because there was just a crazy amount of things that went on. Every day, I could probably talk about for hours, so we tried to simplify it down as much as possible. And we got the map of Uganda here. I don't know if you guys can see that very well, can you? Can? Okay, cool. Basically what happened, originally we thought we were just going over to work with a group called Restoration Gateway up in northern Uganda. Up at, I don't know if you can actually see it. Yeah, I'll let Jamie point. They're doing a bunch of community development work. There we go. Nice. It's right there in the armpit of the purple.
Where are you trying to point?
Karuma.
Karuma. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
like right over.
Right.
No,
Right there. There you go. Yeah, that's where we thought we were going the whole time. And Restoration Gateway, it was started by a couple out of Waco, Texas, a doctor and his wife. True. It was started by a doctor and his wife, and basically the goal was to provide just a gateway of restoration, economically, spiritually, physically, everything for the people of northern Uganda. They're doing a ton of different things. They're building a health clinic, dental clinic, orphanage, school, pastoral training and discipleship centers, retreat center, planting churches. They hire about 80 national workers right now, but they're providing a ton of jobs for the economy up there. And the reason that they're doing all that, and the reason that that's important, is I'm sure a lot of you know, but a lot of you probably don't as well, about the situation of Uganda and the way it has been over the past few decades. But Uganda, for some time, has been wrapped in civil war. I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen Invisible Children, that talked about the Lord's Resistance Army, which was a rebel army led by a very demonically led man named Joseph Kony, that basically would kidnap children and just turn them into soldiers or kill them, one of the two. Kidnapped a lot of children, just raped them out in the bush, and that sort of thing. And honestly, he was just a very demonically led man. And we did learn some very interesting things about how the church in Uganda played a big role in the war's end. But I'll leave that for you to look up on your own. It's a very interesting story, worth looking into. So this whole region is very war-torn. Everybody has a story. I mean, absolutely everybody that we ran into. I mean, you meet the most happy, jolly person on the street, talk to him for a while, and then out of nowhere, they would just come, oh yeah, and one day my dad's head got bashed in with a hammer. Something like that. That was pretty normal to hear stories like that, or find people that had been child soldiers and have since come out of that and even been redeemed by the Lord. But so that's kind of the shape of Uganda. The war ended, has been over for several years now, but you still see a lot of the effects of it. And most of it is in terms of just the economy. There's nothing there. And also just the spiritual healing. There was a lot of family on family type hate crimes, because it was all tribal. Like one tribe killing the same tribe. And so it was just a bad deal all around. So when we got there, what happened, we landed in the capital city of Kampala after a jolly romp around London in the afternoon. And so we spent some time in Kampala, just, eating breakfast and all that stuff. And a pastor had picked us up there and drove us up to Karuma, where Jamie pointed earlier, which is where Restoration Gateway is located. And then it's going to get a little freaky, a little weird, but what ended up happening from there was, if you see the little city of Gulu, it's about an hour north of Karuma. After 2 days, we ended up in Gulu, which is a story in and of itself, and then had come back to Karuma, spent about 2 weeks or so there, and ultimately went back to Kampala, and then spent about a week in Kenya with Alexander and Katie, who are around somewhere here. Oh, there we go. Oh, hey. So, anyway, so that's kind of the order of what happened. And so basically the way we decided to break it down and talk about it was what happened in each of those different places. Starting off with, we got to Restoration Gateway, went up to Gulu, had a very different season of ministry, came back to Karuma, which is a completely different season from that, and then even in Restoration Gateway, even completely different from that. So we decided to break it down. And I'm going to start off talking about just Gulu, keep Chris there. So Gulu is sort of the, these are some pictures of Restoration Gateway, kind of what they got going on there, and you can just kind of cycle through those, Chris. Let people see. This is Tim and Janice McCall. They're the couple from Waco that started this whole project. Those are orphan homes behind them.
And the orphan homes are built by some of those 80 workers that Scott was talking about. They're doing all the construction at Restoration Gateway themselves.
Yeah, and the reason we got this picture, the older lady there is named Peggy, and she is part of the team as well with that other couple. It's that couple and this lady Peggy that started all of this. So we'll go next. That's where they live. They got creative and made a house out of shipping containers. Just stuck in the
That
bush.
was my home for the 3 weeks.
This is like the one big building that they have that's used for housing people. So you can go next. Yeah, bathrooms and stuff. Just kind of give you a feel for what it looks like. Yeah, this kitchen in big house. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is Gulu, about 6 in the morning, just kind of looking out from our hotel. And Gulu is sort of what's a good way to say it? Their intent for Gulu is for it to be the big city of northern Uganda. Right now, it's not a whole lot. It's developing. It does have a swimming pool, but it's kind of developing. But that's the plan for it, is to be a large city. Okay, and the way we ended up here in in Gulu, was we've been at Restoration Gateway for a couple days, but because of circumstances that were going on there, we didn't have a whole lot to do at first. And we got some emails about just amazing things that God was doing up in Gulu with some short-term teams. I had a connection, be a friend sort of thing. And we found out that there was a pub up in Gulu, a bar, that had invited the short-term team in to share the gospel. And we just heard that the Holy Spirit was being poured out like crazy up in Gulu, so our rationale was, if it's happening, we want to be a part of it. And so we had Tim and Janice, that couple, drive us into the town of Karuma, which you'll see later. It's a little truck stop of a town. There's not really anything to it. And they dropped us off, and we ended up kind of hitching a ride up to Gulu, which is an interesting experience in and of itself. And so we really just went up there just because we heard God was moving, because he was working. And I'd also had a connection that was up there that we were going to meet as well. And so we get up there, and the day we get there, we kind of get filled in on everything that's happening. And long story short, there's a couple short-term teams that are up there. And in the week before we got in there, they had something like, do you remember how many people come to the Lord?
It was like 40 or 50 people come to the Lord. That was just from the group of girls that we met up with, like on their list. And then there was a whole other group of guys that had gone out as well. So I mean, it was kind of astonishing numbers. And prior to that, the long-term missionaries that were hosting these short-term missionaries were saying that, like, from January up until June, they'd seen like 4 or 5 people come to the Lord, and then these 2 short-term teams came, and suddenly it was just like exploding everywhere. And we had kind of heard that was going on, and they were telling us more about it on that first day.
What's short-term versus long-term?
Short-term, they were there for like a week and a half. There were a couple teams from Texas as well. But yeah, that was what was interesting is, the long-term missionaries had like 4 people in the last 4 months come to the Lord, and then all of a sudden it goes from 4 to like 40, 50, whatever. And they had that equal number of like documented miracles and healings as well. So we get up there, and actually the day we get there, what we found out was there's a pub that, let's see, Chris, we cycled through. I think I got a picture of the pub. Yeah, it's just more Gulu.
This is right outside our hotel that we stayed at.
All right. This is the Uganda pub. This place right here is basically the hub of prostitution and drug dealing in Gulu, and also about the most happening place at night, just in case you're wondering. And so we get there, and we find out the day that we get there, this team of college students has been invited by the pub owners to come in and do a drama and share the gospel on stage during the World Cup, which is huge. So we're talking like 200 people or so in there that night, and invited